Afghanistan, a nation synonymous with resilience yet perpetually ensnared in a cycle of conflict. The statistics paint a stark picture, a harrowing testament to the daily struggles faced by its people. Did you know that even now, as we enter the latter half of 2024, Afghanistan remains one of the deadliest places in the world? The United Nations Assistance Mission in Afghanistan, UNAME, has documented a chilling reality: thousands of civilian casualties reported in just the first half of this year alone. These aren't just numbers. These are lives tragically cut short, families torn apart, and futures left hanging in the balance. Imagine a land where the echoes of gunfire are a chillingly familiar soundtrack to everyday life, where fear is a constant companion and hope struggles to find its footing. This is the reality for millions in Afghanistan. The world watches, often with a sense of weary resignation, as this nation grapples with challenges that seem insurmountable. But we cannot afford to turn away. This is a story of human resilience in the face of unimaginable adversity. This is the story of Afghanistan in 2024. The year 2024 was meant to be a turning point for Afghanistan, a time for healing, for rebuilding, for a nation to rise from the ashes of decades of war. Yet, the reality on the ground tells a different story. The withdrawal of US and NATO forces in 2021, while marking the end of a long and costly military engagement, created a void that has been swiftly filled by uncertainty and renewed violence. The Taliban, once relegated to the shadows, have returned to power. Their hardline interpretation of Islamic law, coupled with the brutal crackdown on dissent, has plunged the country into a state of fear and repression. Women once again find themselves stripped of their hard-won rights, their voices silenced, their dreams deferred. The economy lies in tatters, crippled by sanctions and a lack of international aid. Millions face starvation, with the UN warning of a looming humanitarian catastrophe. The healthcare system, already fragile, is on the brink of collapse. Schools are shuttered, depriving a generation of children of their right to education. Afghanistan in 2024 is a nation teetering on the precipice. The world cannot afford to stand idly by as it plunges into further chaos. The dangers facing Afghanistan in 2024 are multifaceted, each layer compounding the suffering of its people. Terrorism remains a persistent threat, with groups like ISIS-Khorasan, ISIS-K, carrying out deadly attacks, targeting civilians and challenging the Taliban's grip on power. The resurgence of violence has sent shockwaves through the country, shattering any semblance of normalcy that remained. Political instability reigns supreme. The Taliban, despite their claims of unity, face internal divisions and resistance from factions within their own ranks. This internal strife further destabilizes the country and raises serious concerns about the potential for a new wave of civil war. Adding to this volatile mix is a humanitarian crisis of staggering proportions. The UN estimates that over 28 million Afghans, more than two-thirds of the population, require humanitarian assistance in 2024. The situation is particularly dire for women and children who bear the brunt of the suffering. Afghanistan in 2024 is a land where danger lurks at every turn, where survival is a daily struggle, and where hope is a precious commodity in desperately short supply. To understand the depths of Afghanistan's current crisis, one must delve into its tumultuous past. For centuries, this strategically vital land has been at the crossroads of empires, its history indelibly shaped by foreign interventions and internal conflicts. The Soviet invasion of 1979 plunged Afghanistan into a decade-long war, leaving behind a legacy of destruction and instability. From the ashes of this conflict rose the Taliban, a movement born out of the chaos and fueled by a rigid interpretation of Islam. Their rise to power in the mid-1990s ushered in a period of brutal repression, particularly targeting women and girls who were denied basic human rights. The US-led intervention following the 9/11 attacks in 2001 toppled the Taliban regime, yet it also marked the beginning of another protracted conflict, one that exacted a heavy toll on both Afghan civilians and international forces. 2 decades later, the US withdrawal in 2021 left behind a fragile state, grappling with the ghosts of its past and facing an uncertain future. Afghanistan's history is a stark reminder of the cyclical nature of conflict, the devastating consequences of foreign intervention, and the enduring human cost of war. Amidst the bleak landscape of Afghanistan in 2024, there are glimmers of hope, small acts of defiance and resilience that shine a light on the indomitable spirit of its people. Despite the Taliban's crackdown on dissent, pockets of resistance persist, particularly among women and young people. Underground schools for girls operate in secret, defying the Taliban's ban on female education. Women's rights activists continue to raise their voices, demanding their rightful place in society. The international community, while grappling with donor fatigue and competing priorities, has not entirely abandoned Afghanistan. Humanitarian organizations continue to operate in challenging circumstances, providing vital aid to millions in need. The resilience of the Afghan people, their unwavering belief in a better tomorrow, is perhaps the greatest source of hope for the future. Section 6. The weight of the world. The crisis in Afghanistan is not just a regional issue, it is a global concern. The country's instability has implications for regional security, with the potential to spill over into neighboring countries. The humanitarian catastrophe unfolding within its borders demands a coordinated international response. The international community must recognize that a stable and prosperous Afghanistan is in everyone's interest. Engagement, not isolation, is the key to preventing further suffering and creating the conditions for lasting peace. The world cannot afford to turn away from Afghanistan. The stakes are too high, the human cost too great. Section 7. A call to action. The situation in Afghanistan is dire, but it is not hopeless. We, as global citizens, cannot afford to remain silent or indifferent to the plight of the Afghan people. We must demand that our leaders prioritize a peaceful and stable Afghanistan, one that respects the rights of all its citizens. Support reputable humanitarian organizations working on the ground in Afghanistan. Our collective action, however small it may seem, can make a difference in the lives of millions of Afghans struggling to survive. Section 8. Where hope takes root. In the heart of adversity, the human spirit endures. The Afghan people, despite facing unimaginable challenges, have not given up hope. They dream of a future where their children can live in peace, where girls can go to school without fear, and where their country can finally break free from the shackles of conflict. It is our responsibility to amplify their voices, to stand in solidarity with them, and to work tirelessly towards a future where peace and prosperity prevail in Afghanistan. The path ahead will be long and arduous, but we cannot afford to give up hope. The journey towards a brighter future for Afghanistan begins with each and every one of us. Section 9. The unfolding narrative. The story of Afghanistan in 2024 is still being written. It is a story of immense suffering, but also of extraordinary resilience. It is a story that demands our attention, our empathy, and our action. Let us not turn away from the unfolding narrative of Afghanistan. Let us be the generation that chooses hope over despair, that chooses action over indifference, and that chooses to stand with the Afghan people as they navigate the treacherous path towards a brighter future.